Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Bhante J. Look at that big smile. He's so happy to be here with us, chanting and meditating and sharing the Dharma. See how happy he is? So delighted to be here at Empty Cloud Monastery with Bhante Sudaso and Ayasoma and Bradley, our favorite layperson. So welcome to Gita Jnana, Ella, Jens, Elaine, Gita Ratnayake, Kevin, Lilia, Adriana, and Liz. Happy to see all of you joining in. Adriana says, "Ayo, it's Bhante J again." Awesome. So we've got some cheers for Bhante J. And let's all join together in chanting the Ratana Sutta. So the link is in the live chat. So we'll chant together and then we'll do some meditation and have a Dhamma talk. So we'll start with Namo Tassa 3 times and then chant the sutta. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sammasambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Yani Bhutani Samagatani Mani Vayani Vantaleke Sabeva Bhuta Sumana Bhavantu Atopi Saka Chasunantu Bhasitam Tasmahi Bhutani Sameta Sabe Metam Karota Manusiya Pajaya Devacharato Chaharanti Evaling Tasmahi Nerakata Apamata Yankinchi Vitang Vitavahuram Vasage Suvayam Ratanam Panitam Nano Samangati Tathagatina Idampi Buddhe Ratanam Panitam Etena Sachena Subhati Hotu Kayam Viragam Amatam Panitam Yadat Jagasakya Muni Samahito Natena Dhammena Samati Kinchi Dambi Dhamme Ratanam Panitam Etena Sachena Subhati Hotu Yam Buddha Seto Parivannai Suching Samadhi Manandari Kanyamahu Samadhina Tena Samona Vijjati Dambi Dhamme Ratanam Panitam Etena Sachena Subhati Hotu Ye Bungala Atasatam Pasata Chatari Ekani Yugani Onti Te Dakineya Sugata Sasavakare Te Sudinnani Mahapalani Idampi Sankhe Ratanam Panitam Etena Sachena Subhati Hotu Ye Supayutta Manasa Dalhena Nikamino Gotamasa Sanamhi Te Patipata Amatam Vigaiha Ladhamutanim Buddhim Punchamana Idampi Sankhe Ratanam Panitam Etena Sachena Subhati Hotu Yatinda Kilo Pataving Sito Siya Chatu Vivate Via Sampakampio Tatu Pamang Samurisang Madami Yo Arya Sachani Avecha Pasati Idampi sanghe ratanam panitang etena sachena subhati hotu. Ye ariya sachani vibhavayanti gambhira panyena sudesitani. Kinchapi te honti pusapamata nate bhavanga tamanga diyanti. Idampi sanghe ratanam panitang etena sachena subhati hotu. Sahava sadasana sampadaya taya sudhamma jahita bhavanti. Sakaya diti vichike chitancha silabhatam vapi yadati kinchi. Chatuhapaye cha vipamuto cha chapitanani ahabbo katum. Idampi sanghe ratanam panitang etena sachena subhati hotu. Kinchapi sokam mankaroti papakam kayena vacha udacheta sava. Abhambo sodha sapati chadaya bhabbata dittapada sabhuta. Idampi sanghe ratanam panitang etena sachena subhati hotu. Vanapagumbe yatha pusitage gimmanamase katamasming imhe. Tatupamam dhammavaram adesai nibbanagaming paramangitaya. Idampi buddhe ratanam panitang etena sachena subhati hotu. Varo varanyo varado varaharo anuttaro dhammavaram adesai. Idampi buddhe ratanam panitang etena sachena subhati hotu. Kidam puranam navang nati sambhavang virata cita yatike bhavasming. Te kina bija vivudhichanda nimbanti dhira yatayam paripo. Idampi sanghe ratanam panitang etena sachena subhati hotu. Yani bhutani samagatani bummani vayani vahantalike. Tathagatam deva manusa pujitam buddham namasama subhati hotu. Yani bhutani samagatani bummani vayani vahantalike. Tathagatam deva manusa pujitam dhammam namasama subhati hotu. Yani bhutani samagatani bummani vayani vahantalike. Tathagatam deva manusa pujitam sangham namasama subhati hotu. Etena sacha vajjena dukkhavupasamantu te. Etena sacha vajjena bhayavupasamantu te. Etena sacha vajjena rogavupasamantu te. Okay, so at this time we'll have some meditation led by Bhante J.
Begin to start setting your body up in whatever meditation posture is comfortable and stable for you. Take a few minutes to scan through your body, getting in tune with various feelings that you may observe as you scan through your various parts. Checking to see if there's any small feelings of discomfort or any imbalances in your posture that might lead to pain and problems later on. You need to move around in the beginning, that's perfectly fine. We want to be able to set ourselves up in a way so that once we find the sweet spot of balance and comfort, we can sit quietly, leaving the body parked while we follow the breath. Remember, if you have trouble becoming aware of a feeling, prompt yourself by asking, what do I see? What do I feel? Once you're done scanning through your body, take your 3 deep breaths. And then let go of the body. Let go of the breath. Let the body do its job while you investigate the breath. Watch the body breathe in Wash the body, breathe out. Try to feel the air coming in and out of the nostrils. It may be normal to easily feel the air in one part. They're coming in or they're going out. And having a hard time to feel the air on the other part because it becomes more refined. That's okay. If you have trouble following the breath at the nostrils, you can observe the rise and fall of the chest. Remember to lay down your burdens. For the time of this meditation, lay your world down. Put aside your responsibilities and burdens, worries and concerns, and investigate the breath. When you get distracted away from the breath, the mind has had enough, wants to go away. Whenever you become aware that you've been distracted, first acknowledge that distraction. Recognize that you've left your home base, the breath. Then practice letting go of that distraction by neither getting agitated and pushing it away or getting attached to it and craving, wanting to think about it more. But simply letting it be, not giving it any energy, and slowly return to the breath. Acknowledge, let go, and return over and over. Let the breath lead you into stillness, tranquility, deep states of peace. The breath can bring us there. Our job is to continue to investigate, observe, and follow it. As you're meditating, following your breath, a very strong feeling might arise, such as a really strong itch or pain. And this phenomenon might be so strong that it takes you away from the breath. And no matter how much you try to let it go and return to the breath, you can't. This itch or this pain has become the totality of your experience. At that point, it's okay to leave the breath for a little bit. Switch your object of awareness to that itch or that pain. Bring your investigation skills that you use on the breath to that very phenomena. Investigate what that itch or that pain feels like in the body. What does that itch or pain feel like? Is it a static feeling? Or is it changing and moving? Delve deep and investigate. And while you're doing so, check in with the state of your mind. What is the mind state that occurs when dealing with a very strong itch or pain? What is your general tone of mind? What thoughts arise because of that strong feeling and mind state? And what impulses arise? Like the strong desire to scratch the itch, try to patiently endure for as long as you can to investigate how this mind and body is connected regarding this experience. The mind state changes depending on the feeling in the body. Pleasant feeling and unpleasant feeling. The thoughts often that arise are directly connected to that mind state. And the same with desires for action, impulses. Do your best to patiently endure and investigate that itch or that pain. Really come to see what it is and how both the mind and the body are affected. And then when you've had enough, you can bear it no more, then you can feel free to scratch the itch or adjust your posture. But do so mindfully, observing how things change. What is the feeling when you scratch the itch? Or your body begins to move to alleviate the pain? How does the tone of your mind change? Your thoughts and impulses. Just because you're moving doesn't mean you stop investigating. As a matter of fact, that's the most important time. So you can really observe how things are impermanent, how things change. And then once you're done with that strong feeling that has taken you away from the breath, gently return home, coming back to the breath. All right, everybody. Are you good? Do your...
Thank you, Bante, and welcome to a few more people checking in. Welcome, Mark, who says, greetings from Samsara. Welcome, B. Wen, Tran, Ethan, Jen, AP, Jeff, Peter, Victor, and Priyakant. Happy to see all of you joining in. So this evening, Bante Jay will be speaking about the 7th part of the Noble Eightfold Path, which is right mindfulness. So please, whenever you're ready, please go ahead.
Namo tassa. Oh, well, let me put my... I forgot about this. I think I did that last week. I started talking and I forgot to put the mic on. There we go.
And Gabriella as well. Great.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Good evening, everybody. So we're on right mindfulness. And I think most of you are familiar with what right mindfulness is. It is essentially what we know as Satipatthana, or the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Okay? We'll read this here. One dwells contemplating the body in the body, ardent, clearly comprehending, mindful, having subdued longing and grief for the world. One dwells contemplating feeling and feelings, ardent, comprehending, mindful, having subdued longing and grief for the world. One dwells contemplating mind in mind, ardent, clearly comprehending, mindful, having subdued longing and grief for the world. One dwells contemplating phenomena in phenomena, ardent, clearly comprehending, mindful, having subdued longing and grief for the world. So most of us are probably familiar with this quatrain here. And what I read here is a bit of an older translation, right? So there's always a little bit of a debate when we see the body in the body or feelings in feelings, right? Some of the newer scholarship that I'm aware of, specifically with Bhante Analayo and Bhante Sujato's new translation, they translate this as an aspect of the body, an aspect of feeling, right? So I think this becomes clear when we investigate the four foundations of mindfulness, when we investigate Satipatthana Sutta, right? Majjhima Nikaya number 10. Now, some of the newer scholarship also states that Satipatthana Sutta is probably something that was compiled later, right? Like the Buddha didn't exactly teach this nice package of mindfulness per se. And this may be true, but everything in this nice package is actually in the suttas. It is something that the Buddha taught. So we have the luxury of being able to observe this nice package, right, as a way to develop our mindfulness. Okay? I call it our toolbox, right? Because as you're going out and practicing mindfulness in the world, you'll see that there's various different kinds of types of opportunities in different situations that require some different tools. Okay? And when we investigate Satipatthana, then we can see, there's different tools that can help with different situations. Right? So let's go over the four foundations of mindfulness very briefly. I'm not going to unpack it fully. We don't have time for that, but just very briefly. So an aspect of the body, right? Now let's understand we're investigating the body, right? And so what are the aspects that, what are the techniques, the tools in the toolbox under this, right? The first, at least in the traditional Pali, the first is mindfulness of breathing, right? So we did a little bit of that. Actually, in the guided meditation, I had you do a little bit of both. We did mindfulness of breathing at first, and then we kind of went into a little bit of Satipatthana practice towards the end, right? So mindfulness of breathing is an aspect, right? And why would that be under body, right? Investigate an aspect of the body. Well, the Buddha calls the body, the breath, says the breath body. The breath is a body among the bodies, right? And so we're analyzing an aspect of the body. So the breath is part of that, right? So we also have a sampajanya, which is like clear awareness, or newly translated is situational awareness, right? And this is where the Buddha has us investigate be clearly aware and mindful in all of our activities, right? Standing, walking, sitting, lying down, walking to and fro, doing our exercises, stretching, eating, going to the bathroom, right? So to be clearly mindful. And the other, speaking of new scholarship, Bhante Analayo tends to say that this is probably something that should be first before mindfulness of breathing, which is being aware of your postures, right? Being aware that you're sitting down, standing, lying, walking, right? And then we have being aware of the elements, right? Earth element, water element, fire element, wind element, right? In the body. Buddha says when we look at the body, we see the elements. Right? Water element, that's pretty obvious. right? The water in our body, we're 75% liquid, something like that, right? Fire is the temperature in our body, right? Wind is all the air that's in our body, right? And what is it? Oh, Earth is the rupa, right? The physicality, right? The skin and the muscles and the fat and all that kind of stuff. Right? And then we go into some fun stuff. Right? We go into analyzing the 32 parts of the body, or the 31 parts of the body, whichever you prefer. Which we're investigating, right? We're reflecting on. This body is made up of nails, teeth, skin, hair, all the different body parts, these kind of things, right? And why are we doing all of things? We're investigating what this body is. We want to know truthfully. We want to really understand what is this body, right? And so the Buddha, all of these various tools are allowing us to see these various aspects of the body. And then the charnel ground contemplation. So now this is the contemplation of what this body will become when this body is strewn on the ground like a useless tree stump, right? After we're dead and the body begins to decay and things like that, right? So when we practice this mindfulness of the body, we're practicing to understand what this body is, right? And we can do that we have our clear awareness, investigate, being mindful of all our bodily activities, right? And our postures and our mindfulness of breathing. All of this is to come to clear understanding of the reality of this body, right? This thing that we're stuck in, right? Unfortunately, we got born again. We didn't reach awakening in the last life. So we're stuck back in this body, right? And it could be worse, human being, it could be worse. Being a human is not that bad in the Buddhist cosmology. But here we are, we're with this body, right? So it really behooves us to really understand. We want to know really what this body is, right? And it's very clear in, the Buddha gives a wonderful simile with the 32 parts of the body, right? Because usually when we think, he wants all these body parts are disgusting. I want to think about all my innards and all these kind of things, right? But the Buddhist uses the example of, it says, when a person with clear sight was to look into a bag, and in that bag there would be millet and brown rice and red rice and this bean and that bean, right? And the person would just pick it up and identify, this is this, and then then this is this. And what is they're missing in that simile? The Buddha, the person's not going, this is red rice. I don't like red rice. This is white rice. I like white rice. This is this bean. I don't like that bean, right? So it's meant for us to understand what this body is, to really know, right? Because we have lots of intoxications and illusions with this body, not only our bodies, but the bodies of others, right? So when we truly, really have mindfulness, we develop mindfulness of what this body is, then we start to lose those intoxications. We understand that this body, what did I do yesterday? Right? This body will get sick. This body will grow old. This body will die. We understand the nature of this body, right? So when we really delve into we really practice mindfulness of the body, understanding all these aspects of the body, then we can truly come to wisdom and insight into what this body is. And so then Vedana, feeling, right? So Buddha wants us to investigate our pleasant feeling, our painful feeling, our neutral feeling, right? In this body, because when we contact various things, right? When our eyes contact the outside, ears, nose, tongue, our tangible, our hands or whatever our body contacts, right? So when we have that, we have a feeling that arises, right? Painful, pleasant, neutral, right? But there's also, the Buddha in this wants us to reflect on between two types of painful, pleasant, neutral, right? And the second type, I forgot the Pali word. It's been a while since I taught Satipatthana, so I've lost some of the details. But the first type is bodily. The second type sometimes is translated as spiritual or of the mind, right? So we understand that also feeling is mental as well as physical, right? So we really reflect on these aspects of feeling, right? We know, what do we know? It doesn't take too much of a deep meditator to know what happens when we have a pleasant feeling arise, right? Oh, we like it. We really like it, and we want more of it, and we want to hold on to it. We don't want it to let it go. And if it goes away, we chase after it, right? When there's a painful feeling, we want to run away from it. We want to push it away. We want to hide from it. We want to do whatever we can do to be away from that. And then we have neutral feelings, and they're so boring, and we're so ignorant of them, we don't even recognize them. They just kind of happen, right? They're there in the back of our awareness, but we're not understanding them, right? And two neutral feelings that are, interestingly enough, two neutral feelings, you can, as examples, we can think of this. What's a neutral feeling? The breath, right? Do we pay attention to our breathing? No, unless we're laboring or something causes us to pay attention to our breathing, or we're drowning or something, right? Then we pay attention to our breathing. But normally we go throughout our day doing all kinds of things and we don't pay attention to it because we're busy doing other things, right? What do I say in my guided meditation? The body doesn't need you to do its job. It's just breathing. It's just doing its thing, right? And so is it a coincidence that we use mindfulness of breathing as one of the main, one of the most common practices? What's another neutral feeling, right? The feeling of our feet as we're walking. Unless we step on a nail or we have a pain in our foot or something like that, we don't pay attention to our feet. Right? So is it a coincidence that when we practice mindfulness of breathing, or when we practice some forms of walking meditation, we're trying to pay attention and to stay with these neutral feelings, right? So this is our feeling, right? Or our sensation, right? The science would call it a hedonic tone, right? The hedonic feeling tone of this painful, pleasant, and neutral. So we understand these feelings. Why? So that we can understand how we react to them. Painful feelings, just painful feeling. Pleasant feelings, just pleasant feeling. It's just a feeling, right? How we react to them is how we respond, how we cause ourselves suffering and other suffering in the world, right? So when we know feeling as it is, and we understand it, and we know our underlying tendencies, right? The underlying tendency towards pleasant feeling is to be attached to it. The underlying tendency towards painful feeling is to try to drown it out with pleasant feeling, right? The underlying tendency to neutral feeling, what? Ignorance, right? Because we don't pay attention, we don't see the neutral feeling. So it's very important to understand our feeling, right? How this stuff arises, because it's really between, it's a common thing for teachers to say, it's in the point between feeling and craving that our practice lies, right? It's in the point between feeling and craving that we can really develop our insight, right? So feeling is an obvious aspect that we can really use to develop our insight. Or what about chitta, mind, right? And so we want to practice understanding what is the general tone of our mind, right? A mind that is full of greed, a mind that's full of nekkhamma, or letting go, right? Renunciation, a mind that's full of hate, a mind that's full of metta, goodwill, right? A mind that's full of love. right? Or a mind that's, a contracted mind and an expansive mind, right? All of these various kinds of ways that our mind can be, right? To be clearly aware and understand what is going on in our mind. To really know, okay, I can feel it right now. My mind is quite angry, right? Or my mind is depressed, or my mind is really bursting open with metta for all beings, right? Or my mind is really resentful and vengeful, right? We can understand how our mind has all of these different modes, right? Why? So we can know how the mind works, so that we can understand how the different modes and tones in our mind affect how we interact, how we act in the world, right? And when we don't have an understanding of those mind states and those qualities of mind, right, and those thoughts and impulses and all of these mental objects, then they control us. They run rampant, right? They go from mind to speech and to bodily action. But when we understand the mind, we say, oh, okay. When this mind state arises, this is how I normally react, right? When this mind state arises, my body feels this way. I have an impulse to do something, right? To get up and punch somebody, or to get up and hug somebody, or whatever it is, right? Because the mind. So when we investigate and we understand the mind, then we can have a measure of choice in how we act skillfully in the world, right? And how we act in such ways that lead towards our freedom from suffering. So it's obvious that it's very important that we understand our mind in all of its aspects, in all of its different modes and moods. And the last one is Damas. Now this was translated, especially in my early days of Buddhism, usually was translated as mind objects, but it never really kind of fit well with me. It just didn't kind of make sense when you see like what's under this. But like Bhante Nalio and Bhante Sujato and some new translations, they translate it as principles. And I think that makes the most sense, because when you look at it, what is under this section is the Buddha has given us various principles in which to investigate the world. Investigate what? Our mind and our body, right? And these all are under this Damas, these principles. What's under this? The Four Noble Truths, right? The 7 factors of awakening, the 5 aggregates, the 5 hindrances, all of these numbered lists, right, that the Buddha gives us to as a way to investigate our experience. Right? So when we are investigating Damas, we're investigating the principles that the Buddha, the 6 senses is another one, right? So the Buddha gives us these frameworks in which to experience and investigate our world, right? The Buddha calls the 6 senses, this body and mind, the all, our world, right? So we want to investigate this world, really to know what's going on in this mind and body. And these 4 things, right? What? Body, feeling, mind, principles. All these 4 things work together, right? You know, some teachers will say, one day you practice focusing on Vedana, feeling. One day you practice focusing on mind. One day you practice focusing on body. And that's a valid thing to try. I mean, in my own experience, for me, what worked best was to see how they all interplay and they're all interconnected, right? It's very rare that a feeling arises and it has nothing to do with your mind, right? Or your body, or one of the principles. It's very rare that you have a mind state and that has no effect on your body, right? So all of these things, this mind and body interconnectedness, you understand these, as it's good to understand how they work as a package. Right? So, and at the end of this, because our time is coming close, but at the end of this, the Buddha, at the end of the Satipatthana Sutta, there's a wonderful thing where the Buddha says, if one were to practice this very diligently, they would attain awakening within 7 years. And then it goes down, if not 7, but 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, not 7 months, 5, 4, 3, 7 weeks, 7 days, right? So imagine if we could practice Satipatthana in such a way that by next week we're all awakened beings, right? That would be a very powerful practice. I haven't mastered that yet because I've been doing this for about 10 years and I'm still here. So now, it's harder than it seems there, but if we were able to really practice this, then we can understand. And so this is a wonderful practice. We can do this no matter what, right? If you are at the time in your practice where you most of your practice is just sitting down, right? I sit down twice a day for a half hour, etc. That's good. But what you want to practice is developing your everyday mindfulness, to take the practice with you, right? Like you have a toolbox. Like you're going to work, you're going to the store, you're going wherever you're going. You're going on vacation, you have the toolbox with you, right? You can take Satipatthana with you no matter where you go, no matter what activity you're doing, right? And when you change your mind to think that way, right? What happens, right? Normally we think, well, I don't got enough time to meditate, I'm so busy, right? But when you think about, I'm going to take my practice with me everywhere I go, right? Then all of a sudden we find all these opportunities, right? We're driving, I'm driving to work, or I'm driving from work, or I'm driving on vacation, traffic. And you're sitting in traffic for an hour. Normally it's like, son of a gun, these people who did this. What? Oh no, I was so busy in life, but now I have an opportunity to practice sitting here, right? Life has given me an opportunity to practice. Or you're waiting, you're online at the, supermarket, and there's like 5 old ladies in front of you with 30 coupons each, and you're going to be online for a half hour. It's like, coupons. I have an opportunity to practice, right? There's this new concept that I've been hearing, like people talking about podcasts, right? Found time, right? People listen to podcasts when they're driving or whatever. Found time. Well, when you are a practitioner of Satipatthana, when you practice mindfulness and all that you do, you find so much time to practice Dhamma, to really understand and investigate what is this mind in this body, right? What is this experience that we're stuck into? All for what? All for the purpose of developing insight, living ever more skillfully in the world, moving ever more slowly towards freedom, right? Liberation. And this is one of the premier teachings and the premier ways, right? This is the Buddha's teaching. This is what the Buddha gave, right? There was meditation before the Buddha. There was jhanas before the Buddha. Or maybe not right jhana, but there were jhanas before the Buddha, right? There was all these kind of meditation teachings. The Buddha's gift to the world is mindfulness, satipatthana, vipassana, right? That's the Buddha's gift, because that's what the Buddha found to become awakened, right? Because he studied all these things. So we should really, if you haven't started to develop a mindfulness practice, a foundations of mindfulness satipatthana practice, I encourage you, now is the time to get started, right? And really start to think about try to develop the mindset that everything you do, everywhere you are, life is giving you an opportunity to practice, to learn. Life is teaching you. And then you find all the time in the world to develop your practice. So with that, we'll go to questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Bhante. So at this time, if you have any questions or comments, please type them in the live chat and I'll read them out for Bhante J. So we have one question already. So B. Wen asks, Hi, Bante. Please explain mindfulness versus concentration. Are they the same?
Okay. So concentration is what we're trying to do. So samadhi is the term right here, and it's translated as concentration, but it's also translated the other ways like stillness or one-pointed concentration. So when we're practicing a concentration, a samatha technique, what we're doing that for is to develop a calm, clear, tranquil mind. Because the Buddha says, a calm, clear, tranquil mind can see things as they are. Right? So this aspect is very important in the suttas, right? Like as far as I can tell, this practice of developing samatha, developing samadhi, jhanas, kind of went away, at least in the West, practice for a bunch of decades, right? And it became vipassana, vipassana, vipassana. But if you see in the suttas, right, you see samatha and vipassana, right? You see these two things that go together, right? Samatha is a mind that is developing calm, peaceful, tranquility, concentrated mind on an object, right? That's why we use something like the breath. Right? And the way the Buddha teaches in the suttas how we use this is we develop that calm, clear, tranquil, beautiful mind. Think about this way. Think about what we have a lighthouse, right? And the lighthouse is really gunky, right? And you can kind of see out the lighthouse, but you can't really see clear or far, right? That's kind of like developing our mindfulness, developing our, trying to develop a state of vipassana, a mind state of vipassana without jhana, without samatha. We can develop insight, we can develop our wisdom, but it's quite slow, right? Because you're dealing with a mind that's not crystal clear, calm, tranquil, concentrated. But now imagine you practice following your breath, mindfulness of breathing, breath. The breath is taking you deeper, deeper. Your mind's becoming so calm, so tranquil, so peaceful, right? And then you get into these deep states of concentration like the jhanas, where all the things that color our mind, right, start to disappear, right? Pain and pleasure, like and dislike, until the only thing that's left is mindfulness and equanimity, right? A clear mind. And that's like a lighthouse where the glass is completely clear, right? The light shines out and you can see for miles. Right? Or I used to use the example at Bhavana, right? Because you could look up and you can see the mountains. I would say it would be like if you looked up and saw the mountains and all you saw were clouds. It's very obscure. And then one day you look up and the sky is clear and you can see all the detail of mountains. That's why we develop samatha practices, samadhi practices that really develop our stillness, our tranquility, our concentration. Right? And while we're in those states, right, the Buddha teaches us to turn our mind to what? The three characteristics of existence. This is impermanent. This is unsatisfactory. This is not self. Right? To observe the rise and the fall. Right? To observe the gratification, the danger, and the escape. We use all of these techniques in a way to see things as they are. Yata bhuta is reality. To see reality as it is. Right? And so this is why we want to develop this tranquility. We want to develop our minds in such a way, not, I've never been in jhana, so I can't speak directly personally, but like, you can get into jhanas, you can get really blissed out and it feels great and everything. And, even if you've developed it enough, you can develop it so that you can be like, oh, what's today, Thursday? Well, I'm going to go into jhana, right? And then I think I'll come out next Wednesday, right? and you're just blissing out for 7 days, and it's wonderful. And then, you escape everything for 7 days. But what happens? What's there when you wake up? Right? Your dukkha is there. Your ignorance is there. Everything is still there, right? So we should understand that we develop our concentration. We develop these samadhi, samatha practices for the purpose of seeing things as they are, for the purpose of developing a mind of vipassana, right? A mind of vipassana sees things as they are, sees deeply, sees the reality of things in a way that we cannot normally see, because we have so much stuff clouding our vision, right? Clouding our ability to see the reality. So we use these two things, samatha and vipassana, are mind states that we're trying to develop. And so we use techniques to develop them, like mindfulness of breathing, like satipatthana, right? And these things go together, they work together, right? The Buddha, in the King Sukha Sutta, I think it is, the Buddha calls them swift pair of messengers, right? These two things work together, and these two are parts of our practice that we develop together so that we can develop our insight.
And AP says, I tend to observe each phenomena, such as thoughts and sensations, as arising and passing away, and that they aren't self. I feel I may be overanalyzing. Is this the correct way to be mindful in daily life?
Well, are you trying to force yourself to believe that they're not self, or are you actually starting to see it, right? When it comes to mindfulness, what I will say is, you're not trying to kind of I know this is not me, this is not mine, this is not myself, right? So you're not trying to kind of force anything. You're trying to see something, right? So you want to be able to, when you investigate, you want to be able to really understand, right, where is this self, right? Where is this, right? You can see, that little, that what I call the Vipassana itch, or FMTI, right? Feelings, mind, thoughts, and impulses. That little guided meditation I gave you, when I say to observe like the pain, right? Years and years ago at Bhavana, when I was a layperson going there for retreats, Bhante Silananda talked about at one retreat how he observed the pain in his knee, and he observed how it was moving and tingling and all these kind of things, right? And here I am as a layperson, and I'm like, what the heck is he talking about? I just feel this overwhelming feeling, pain, right? But years later, I was meditating, and there's the pain, and I investigate, and I saw exactly what Bhante Sila said. Right? I saw how it was moving and tingling, and it wasn't just one solid thing. It was actually what? It was rise and fall. It was moving. It was getting worse. It was getting better, right? It was moving the whole time, right? So when you investigate, that's what you see. You see that things are moving. Things are rising. They persist for a time with alteration, meaning they're around for a time, but they're changing. And then they cease, right? So you can observe that in all the different phenomena, right? It's easy to see in the breath, right? You can see, what is the breath? Breathing in, we have some air, which means we can live for a couple seconds or maybe another minute. Breathing out, breathing in, and that's changing, that's flowing, that's moving, it's rising and ceasing. That's what everything is. Everything is rising and ceasing, right? So if you can see that, then you're seeing with Vipassana, you're developing your mindfulness. You're seeing that, this pain, it's here, but it's not going to last forever, right? I remember even after that, I can remember okay, I'm going to mindfully watch the pain, and it's going to go away. I know it's impermanent. It's going to go away. And I'm watching, and I'm watching. In 1 minute, in 2 minutes, I'm like, wait, it's not going away. They lied to me. It's not going away. Come on. Are you going away? Are you going away? And then finally I'm like, oh, it's not going away. I have to do something about it. I have to move my leg, right? And then see, now it went away. It didn't go away by itself, right? But then there has been some times where I was able to watch it. and it rises and it gets painful and painful, but then it actually does go away, right? And so I was able to see more deeply how it moves, how it flows, and see the impermanence, the anicca of the situation. And when you can see that, then you're seeing with vipassana, then you're being mindful, right? Being mindful in terms of the Buddha, right? When sati, right? When we're being mindful, we're seeing the three characteristics of existence. We're seeing that this is impermanent. It's changing, it's flowing, it's arising, and it's ceasing, right? It's not stable. It's not dependable. We're seeing that when we attach to things, right, we want our meditation to be a certain way. We don't want to have pain. And then it happens and we suffer because we're attached to it. We want something to be a certain way. And then when it doesn't turn out that way, we suffer. Right? And then a more refined, a more deep understanding is when you start to see and really understand this body isn't mine. You know what you do. One of the interesting things for dealing with pain, things like that, is, or strong things, is exactly what I said. You turn on it as an investigation. There's an interesting phenomena where when you start to investigate something, you actually detach from it a little bit, and then you're just investigating it, and you notice that it's not as painful as it was. It's not as overwhelming as it was. You've detached from it, and you're kind of equanimously investigating it, right? And that is actually a way of kind of really seeing it for what it is, right? Getting away, instead of being wrapped up in it, it just feels like, oh, my pain, all these things. No, you invest, okay, I'm going to investigate this. And for a while, it's painful, but then all of a sudden, it just clicks, and you're like, oh, wait, it's not as bad anymore. And I'm really investigating and understanding it. So this is what, to be mindful, is to see these things, right? We want to see these characteristics of existence, see these things as they are, the reality of it, right? And then we have an insight. We see, oh, okay, so this is what things are like. This is reality, right? And then that allows us to let go, to not be so attached to, these things, and not to get so wrapped up in them. And that gives us a measure of choice and of freedom and of peace, right? And so that's how we practice our mindfulness, so that we can develop these, right? Really investigating at any time, right? While you're sitting down typing, you can investigate what's going on in your mind and your body, right? Whatever you're doing, you can do that. Even right now, as I'm talking to you, I can feel like right here, there's a little pressure in this leg, there's a little pressure in my knee, I'm sweating a little bit. I can really, as I'm talking, I can still connect. I mean, that's because I've been doing this for a long, long time. It gets easier that way. In the beginning, it's not so much. But as you're doing that, whatever activity you're doing, you can investigate these things, and that can lead you to development of insight.
Okay, and the next question, Gabriella asks, when practicing mindfulness of Vedana, what is the best way to not get wrapped up in the emotional content so as to avoid papancha?
Emotional content. So I'm assuming like your reaction to the feeling, right? Your reaction to like the painful feeling. I don't like this. I want to run it away. Aversion and attachment. I'm assuming that's what you mean. And what I would say is the best thing to do is exactly what I said, right? You in a way, like I almost kind of understand, like in the Thai tradition, they say they hear the thing that says like become the observer. That is kind of what it is. Like when you are investigating something and it becomes the focus of your investigation, you detach from it, right? You're observing it, you're investigating it. And it's in a way, it's not your leg anymore. It's not this, it's just a leg, or it's just pain, right? And then that's when you kind of get a little glimpse into anatta. It's like, oh, right, I really thought this was mine. I thought this was mine. But I'm investigating it, and it's just pain. It's just a leg. It's just this, right? So really delving deeply and using mindfulness to understand what it is, that in itself squashes the papancha, right? Because you're not thinking about it, you're investigating it, right? And in the beginning, you know, it might be this kind of like quasi-intellectual, like you know, like, oh, and then this is happening, and so there's some verbalization in the mind. But the more you're focusing, the more you investigate, the more that tends to go away, and what's just left is your observation of the experience, right? And so then you're just observing. You're not trying to control, manipulate. You're not trying to create a narrative of it. You're not trying to do any of that. Just to really understand the experience, right? To really kind of immerse yourself in that experience so that you can develop insight into it.
Okay. And the last question that we have is, Eva asks, can you incorporate metta into right mindfulness?
Yes, definitely. So one of the best ways to incorporate metta into mindfulness is that when you're very deep into metta, what can you do? You can reflect on this. Metta is impermanent. This metta is unsatisfactory. Why is it unsatisfactory? Because right now you're feeling good, you're blissed out, metta is wonderful. Hour from now, you watch something on TV, right? Where did your metta go? It's impermanent. It's gone. It left, right? If you were attached to that metta, then you really wanted your metta, or you identified yourself, I am a mettaful person. And then the anger comes, and guess what? You suffer. It's like, oh, I thought I was such a mettaful person. I'm really a horrible person, right? And this metta is not self. Right? That's how you can, through the Brahmi Viharas, through the jhanas, all of these things. This is how we develop insight, right? We really understand. Right? And also, what can we understand? We can use metta, right? When we're investigating our body, we're investigating pain, right? We can really have metta and compassion for ourselves. I am a suffering being. May I be happy. May I be well. May I investigate this phenomena well, so that I can use it as a vehicle for insight, right? So I can end my suffering and end my pain, right? So we can use our metta for ourselves, right? And we can also use, the more you develop your insight, actually, the more powerful, the more you can understand how important metta is, and the more you can use it, right? Especially, how your body is, how your pain and your pleasure is, how your mind is, right? And so you understand, oh, I have much metta for other beings, right? Because I understand, because I have the insight to understand how the mind and the body works. So I can have that metta and compassion and understanding and patience with other beings as well, right? So metta is a very important tool of the Noble Eightfold Path, right? Of the path to liberation, right? And all of these tools work together in that regard. So you can use metta as a pathway to awakening, right? Even metta is also a samatha practice, right? Metta is a practice that you can use. I know of a few monastics who say that they use metta instead of like mindfulness of breathing, right? So you can use metta for the development of insight. Right? Get a very nice, peaceful mind. You can investigate. You can see the three characteristics of existence, right? You can see all of these things. So yes, metta is an integral part of the practice in many ways, and fits in very nicely with mindfulness practice. And you can use it for mindfulness practice.
Okay, and we have one more question. Liz asks, is it the ultimate goal to realize that all the emotions, feelings, sensations, etc. are creations of the mind and hence do not really exist?
I wouldn't say that they don't exist, right? It's quite hard to, punch yourself and then say, this doesn't exist, this feeling doesn't exist, this feeling doesn't exist, right? It's what you want to understand is that it's just feeling, right? It's not my feeling. It's just feeling. That is what you're part of anatta, right? That's the goal, right? We want to understand the reality for what it really is, right? So when we investigate this, we can see that all of these things that we're attached to, all of these views that we're attached to, all of these pleasures that we're attached to, all of these pains that we run away from, they're simply phenomena, right? Whether they exist or don't exist, or in the transcendental way, I don't know. The Buddha doesn't really talk about that one way or the other, at least not in the early texts, right? So it's not necessarily worry about, this pain doesn't exist, this pain doesn't exist, right? It feels pretty real to you, doesn't it? Right? It feels there, right? So this pain, your job is to understand what this pain is, right? We understand the totality of our experience of our mind and our body. And in doing so, the more we do so, the more we understand the reality of what this mind and body is, the more peace we gain. Why? Because we're not running around being wrapped up in so many things and pains and views and agitations and all kinds of stuff, right? We understand, this is the world. This is my body, right? This is that. It is as it is. Right? No matter what, I can wish my body to be one thing or another, but doesn't have to listen to me, right? This is the nature of having a body. This is the nature of having a mind, right? And that brings a lot of peace, brings a lot of, I thought these thoughts were mine, that I was attached to them, and I had to follow them. I thought these impulses were mine, but I don't need to, right? I don't need to follow them, because these are unskillful. They're going to lead to my harm and the harm of others. It's going to create just more suffering. Why am I doing this to myself? Like, why? It's like for your whole life, you just go around hitting yourself in the head, and you're just like, going to work, drinking, whatever. You're just hitting yourself in the head, just going like this, and it's just normal. It's just normal. And then one day you say, it's just, what? Why am I doing this to myself? I don't want to do this anymore. Why am I doing this? I'm just going to just be at peace, right? Why am I because I'm hurting myself, but I'm also like really agitated. And so I'm yelling at people, and I don't, I'm yelling at my kids and my spouse and my coworkers and getting road rage, and I hate this person. And he's like, this is what it's like. This is really nice. This is really peaceful, right? I can have lots of metta, and I can have lots of calm and tranquility, and I can try to act skillfully in the world and live in peace with other beings, right? So much nicer this way than me beating myself over the head and all this stuff that I used to do. So this is important to understand as we use our mindfulness as a tool for our peace and freedom and liberation.
And one last question. Jens asks, Bhante, would you say through the development of mindfulness and insight into universal characteristics, metta naturally arises?
Yes. Yeah. Well, see, this is the thing. Metta is like a transcendent thing, right? Same thing with the Buddha's compassion. The Buddha's compassion is a transcendent thing, right? Metta goes beyond and the Buddha's compassion, real transcendent compassion, goes beyond what us and them, goes beyond our likes and our dislikes, right? It is a understanding that only comes with real deep insight into the nature of reality. Could you imagine, you can just look at the world today, right? You can look about like, oh, so many people are suffering in so many different ways in so many places, right? So many people just trying to live their lives and trying to find happiness. But then the Buddha can look out and just see all of samsara. It's like, oh, all these poor beings in this chaotic travesty called samsara, just trying to find some peace and happiness and screwing up and doing all kinds of things. Like, oh, what else can you do but have this metta and this compassion, right? So the deeper your insight into the nature of reality, of course, the deeper your metta, the deeper your compassion, right? Like I've had many experiences where I can see just like the suffering and the anger or the sadness in people's faces. So it's just like walking past them in the street and things like that, right? I can just see it. I can understand, they're having a bad day, or maybe they're having a bad life, or maybe the world is against them, and they're just trying to survive, right? And you can just see it you can just see, this is their mind state, right? And so you can, take the time out. I can remember when I was here for a metta retreat at Buddhist Insights, right? And those of you who've been on my metta retreats, I like to go out and walk. We will walk meditation in the neighborhood, right? And when there's people in the neighborhood, there's lots of people in the neighborhood. So just walking right past them like this. I'm practicing metta by it while ignoring all these people around me. I say, talk to them, say hello, all these kind of things, right? And so I can remember very vividly, I was walking down the road, and here comes this big dude, right? And I could just see in his face and his demeanor, he was really angry or agitated about something, right? And those of you remember, was it 3 days ago? What did I tell you about the story about that person when I was on register, right? That just said hello to me and all that, and I felt nice. And what did I do, right? As I'm walking this way, he's walking this way. I say, hey, what's up, man? How you doing today? All this. And he just kind of like this. He's like, oh, hey, man, what's up? Hey, brother. And then we just kept going. But, just for that split second, I just wanted to say, hey, you just kind of get him away from that, because so when you are able to see that, you have the power to understand, oh, I know what that mind state is like, right? Or maybe it doesn't mean I know 100% exactly what's going through their mind or what they're suffering or what they're dealing with or anything like that. But I can understand this is a mind of that, this person is suffering, and I can do something to try to, engage with them, to try to, help them in a little bit. I can't take away their suffering. I can't reach in their mind and take it away for them, right? But, at least I can act in a humanly metaful way, right? I don't know what that's going to do, but you have the power. You understand what the reality is, then you can do something about it.
Okay. Well, that's the last question. So thank you, Bhante Jay, for sharing Dharma, and thank you to everyone who participated. So tomorrow morning we'll have sutta study, and tomorrow evening we'll have monk chat. So please bring all your miscellaneous Dharma questions tomorrow evening to our panel of 3 resident monastics for monk chat. So see you all tomorrow. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
What about Ajahn Stan? He's not
good at answering questions.
That's true.
I mean, every question he just answers meow.
That sounds like a Zen koan.
Yeah, like one finger Zen. He's got the one meow Zen.